So I moved to France about 5 years ago, and my first apartment was in the suburbs of Paris in this town, and I lived like right in the middle of the town. And I quickly realized, like after a few months of living there, that no matter which direction I would walk off in, I would run into a bakery. I quickly realized how baguettes, bread, pastries, and bakeries are such a huge aspect of French culture. There are like laws with how fresh the bread has to be, what ingredients you can use. And soon after moving there, my French wife quickly picked out like her favorite bakery, and she would know if I went to another bakery and bought something, even if I would throw away the packaging and she would eat like the pastries or whatever I bought, the baguette, she would know immediately, like, where did you get this? This is not my bakery. So in the past 2 years, we bought a house further out in the countryside, and the same thing kind of happened. We found like the bakeries surrounding our house, and she's already picked her favorite. She kind of tries to ban me from going to specific bakeries. But I've been curious, like how many bakeries are in this city, because we again live kind of like on the outer edges of the center of the city, so we can walk to a lot of bakeries. And I really want to know how many bakeries are in this town, and I'd like to know how long it takes me to walk to each of them. So I'm going to be using Adobe After Effects and a premium plugin called GeoLayers 3 to create this particular animation. I'm going to be pulling the data from OpenStreetMap using a tool called Overpass Turbo. I'm going to try to keep it as non-technical as possible. You should be able to follow along, no problem. And if you don't have GeoLayers, you can still create your own animations using these same techniques in a program called Google Earth Studio, which is free to use. So please follow along with this tutorial. I'd love to see you create your own map, like map whatever you want around your city. If you want to see where all the churches are, you're going to be able to do it. If you want to see where all the swimming pools are, if you want to see where all the drinking fountains, if you want to see where all the parking lots are, all the schools, there's a ton of different things you can do. And if you do create something using this technique, please share it with us down in the comment section with everyone. Everyone would love to see it. Or if you want to tag me on social media, if you create something, tag me at Boone Video on any of the social media platforms. Big shout out to my tier 3 patrons, Tyson the Keymaster, Samara Mahdi, Joseph Culligan, Mike and Sandra over at YouTube at Flumi+1, and Josh. Thanks again folks for making this video possible. Okay, so for the first step here, I need to actually locate and download this geodata for all of the locations of these bakeries in my city so that I could then bring that data into GeoLayers and Adobe After Effects, which I can then use to design and animate my beautiful map of all the bakeries near me. So for this particular tutorial, I'm going to be using a resource called OpenStreetMap. I'm sure you've probably heard of this before. However, if you have not, OpenStreetMap is a resource built by a community of mappers that contribute and maintain the data about all these locations and places all over the world. And the map data from OpenStreetMap is used by thousands of websites, and it's actually open data, so you can use it as well. All you have to do is provide the proper credit for OpenStreetMap and the contributors. I'm going to go ahead and link to the copyright and license page that shows you how to do that. It's a really simple process. So here's OpenStreetMap. I'm going to go ahead and search my city, and then I'm going to zoom in here. And once you zoom in to a specific level, you can actually query features using this little arrow here. So if I go in and I just click on something here using this arrow, it's going to bring up all of these features here. And as I mouse over them, it shows me what's what. So here we have a courthouse. If I click on this, it's going to bring up all of this metadata here. But there's not a real straightforward way to actually download the geodata here. So for this, I'm actually going to be using a tool called Overpass Turbo. So this tool essentially allows you to filter out specific data on the map, and then you can highlight that data and then download it in whatever file format you want. It looks a little technically intimidating at first. You have all this coding over here. So luckily they have this little wizard up here that allows you to query or search the data. So you can do this by keywords, or you can search specific tags that have been placed inside of the metadata. Now, I urge you to go look at the help section over here. It shows you how to use this tool, and it says right here, there is an integrated wizard which makes creating queries super easy. I don't know if I'd say it's super easy. I would say it's pretty easy, because sometimes specific keywords won't work. And then in those examples, you need to kind of know a little bit about the language of OpenStreetMap so that you can search these various tags or metadata options. So if I were just to go to the wizard here and I type in bakery and hit and then click on build and run query, it's going to bring up all of these bakeries, which is cool. But sometimes simple keywords won't work. So let's say I want to look up churches. I can type in church, build and run query, and for some reason it doesn't pull up all the churches. I see one over here. But if I go back to OpenStreetMap and I just find a church like this right here and I query it, you can actually look at all the data here. So right here it says place of worship. So if I click on this, it's going to give me this. So right here, place of worship. So if I wanted to search all the places of worship, I could go to the wizard and type in place of worship. And then voila, we can see all of these. Okay, so we'll go back and we'll search those bakeries. And this gives me all these locations. So I can click on one and it shows me, these are called nodes, and it gives me a little bit of information. The coordinates shows that it's a bakery, gives me the name. And some of these are going to give you more information than others. And the searches are only applied to your little scope of like what you have your zoom level here. So if I zoom out, it will search all the bakeries in that specific window. So be aware of that. So I'm going to click export now. And now you can see I've got GeoJSON, GPX, KML. I'm going to go ahead and grab the GeoJSON and we'll download that. All right, inside of Adobe After Effects. Now to bring the data file in, you simply go to the GeoLayers panel here and then click on Add Features to Browser, this little plus icon down here, and then you'll see Import File. So I'm going to click on that, and then I'm going to navigate to the GeoJSON, which I renamed Bakeries. Going to double click, and now you can see a little dot up here in France. So to bring this full screen, I can simply double click on this feature collection. And if you open this up, this is actually a feature collection of all of these bakeries. And I'm going to add these to my favorite features, because if you don't add them to the actual favorite features and you close After Effects and reopen it, they'll be gone. You'll have to re-add them. Now I'm going to create a new map comp based off of this view, and I'll call it Bakeries Near Me. Ultra HD 4K, 15-second duration. And I'm going to go with the standard default map tiler imagery here, and I will click on Create. That's going to get everything set up. And then I'm going to hold Control and click on Finalize. That's going to give me a high-res frame here, so everything's looking good. Now, before I get started with anything, I need to add the most important element, this PNG of a baguette, which is brought to you by today's sponsor, Envato Elements. With a subscription to Envato Elements, you get access to over 56 million assets. I'm constantly using assets from Envato Elements in my map animations, and you can see right here, the baguette is the key visual for this map. They have a section for 3D, so I was able to find a 3D baguette and then position it however I wanted it using this 3D tool. Then I could export it as a PNG with transparency, and then bang, went right into my comp, already had the shadow. It worked seamlessly, it was perfect, it was so fast. And think about if I didn't have this, would I want to go like try to take my own photo of a baguette? That would be horrible. Or just trying to randomly find a Creative Commons image of a baguette online. Forget it. That's a lot of wasted time. They have a ton of other assets including icons, ink transitions, sound effects, textures. They offer a nice and clean, simple lifetime commercial license, which is good even after your subscription ends. Following the link in the video description is going to give you 50% off when you select an annual subscription, which will give you access to everything on the site for under $20 a month. First off, let's stylize this map a little bit. I'm going to grab the map comp, and then I'm going to add a tint effect because these greens are once again just too strong for me. And then I'm going to map the black a bit, I'm going to bring this back up to like a whiter color, like gray, so it's a little bit less contrasty. And now I'm going to be focusing on, if you select the feature collection, you can see I want to mainly focus on what's inside of this little area here within this highway, the periphery here. You can see it right here. So maybe I want to zoom in a little bit further on this. Something like that is actually looking pretty good. And now I want to have like all the edges of the map kind of fade off into this white color as like a background. So I don't want the sides of the map to draw attention away from the center. I want the focus to be on the center. So I'm going to create a little overlay here. There's a few different ways you can do this. You can do this as like an alpha matte, but I'm just going to create a simple solid. So I'm going to go to New Solid, and with the pen tool here, I'm going to select some color like out here, and then I'll call this white background. I'm actually just going to place this over top of the map comp, and then I'm going to hit T for opacity, bring the opacity down a little bit just so I can see where that highway is. Then I'm going to grab the pen tool, and I'm essentially creating a mask here that's going to loosely go around this highway like this. Okay, so if we look at this, what we got right now is just this solid. So let's bring the opacity back up, and I'm going to switch the mask to subtract mode. And now you can see this is what we have here. So if I hit F for feather, it's going to bring up the feathering. And now I can feather this out by like 800 pixels or something. And I'll bring the opacity to about 90. So we still want to see the rest of the map. We just want it to feather out quite a bit. And you can fine tune the mask as your heart desires. Maybe you want it to go more around the baguette here and then off this way. You don't want it to be perfectly symmetrical. Something like that. And I could even add a blur at some point to this as well. Okay, and I'm going to add a text element as well. So let's hit the text tool here, and I've got this color selected, and this is actually a color that I selected from this baguette here. We want some kind of color like orange brown, like this baguette here. And then I'm going to go ahead and type in boulangeries near me, and have this right aligned, and I'm going to grab the word boulangeries and just switch that to bold. And maybe I'll make this one just a little bit smaller, like 100. Okay, and now I can place this kind of up in the top, something like this. And I'm going to go back to GeoLayers, and I'm just going to grab the whole map and kind of drag the map over to this side so it's off to the side. And now I'm actually going to need to grab that mask as well. So if I double click on it, I can move it. So just move it like that. There we go. Okay, that's a good start. Now let's go ahead and draw out these features here. So for that, we need to specify a layer style. So I need to figure out, when I draw these out, how am I going to draw them out? So the layer styles are up here. If you click on it, these are all your layer style presets, and they're based, all these color schemes are based off of whatever map imagery you selected. So I'm going to create a new style here. And actually, let me go back to the character panel, and I'm going to copy this color. I want it to be this same color. So I'm going to copy the hex code, and then I'll go back here. I want this to be just a stroke / point, and I don't want any fill. And it looks like I already kind of selected this color. And we have a width of 20 pixels, opacity of 100. I can set the default layer blending mode as well. It's set to normal. I'm perfectly fine with that. At any point, I can go back and change this and quickly swap the layer style out. So it's not a big deal if it doesn't look right at first. Now you can see the preview here of all these layer styles are set up like this. So with this feature collection selected and my layer style selected, I could draw these out. But first, if I click back on the layer style presets, there are these 4 different parameters that are drastically going to change how those are drawn out. And I want them drawn out as individual layers because I'm going to be animating all those points on at slightly different moments. So if I don't have individual layers selected, it's going to draw all these points as one individual shape layer, which maybe that's what you want, but that is not what I want because I want a little more flexibility in the animation. I also have auto stroke width applied, so that will automatically adjust the width of that as I zoom my camera in and out. And you can also have it selected to be inside of the map comp, which just offers you more flexibility when it comes to like blending and compositing. But I'm going to leave this as is right now. But again, just be aware of these effects. And now I can go to draw features and draw the feature here, and it's going to take just a little bit of time. And there we go, all the map markers now as individual layers. Okay, so the map is pretty much there. I just want to bring it to life through some animations now. So first, before we start moving the camera around, I need to make sure that everything's attached that I want to be attached. So let's say I want to do a zoom out from like the city center and then have it reveal the text and the baguette image here. So I do want those pinned, I do want those attached to the map. And there's 2 different ways that you can do that. I have the text and the baguette here, and then we've got all these other layers. And you know what? I'm going to go grab all of these layers, which are all the individual map markers, and I'm going to hit the shy layer so that I kind of turn them off within the timeline here so I can work a little bit more freely. And now what I'm going to do for these is I'm going to grab both of these, and I'm going to parent them to the anchor, the Bakeries Near Me Map Comp anchor. And now they will move with the map. So I also need to activate 3D, and that way if I do any bearing or pitch movements or rotations, they'll move around accordingly with the map. Okay, so that's good to go. Now let's animate the position of the camera. So we just want it to do the zoom out over the course of, let's say, 4 seconds. So let's say this is the final position. So I'll add a keyframe here, and then let's go to the first position, which will be over here. Let's zoom way in, and let's say maybe even we're going to do a little bit of a bearing change as well, so it'll kind of pivot around like that. I don't know if there was a bearing keyframe for this one. Okay, also we have this problem with the solid or the overlay thing. So for this, I want to fade this on. So let's go to opacity, and we'll also fade this on over the course of 4 seconds. And I want this to match these keyframes. So now I'll full screen this, just make sure these are lined up, and then I'll go grab all of them, and I'm gonna go grab the motion extension just to add some quick animation to this. They all have the same movement, so I'm just gonna grab like a 75 to 33 so that it'll go like this. Okay, there we go. Okay, cool. And now for the actual map markers, I want those to animate on kind of randomly, one at a time. So for that, I will turn off the shy button. Then I'm going to actually grab all of them and then go to the effects and presets panel. And I'm going to search keyword fade. And then there's one under behaviors. It's called fade in and out frames. And if I double click this, it's going to add this animation to all of these shape layers, which is essentially the first 15 frames and last 15 frames. It's going to fade in and out. So no matter how you trim those, that animation is going to stick to that. So now when I stagger the layers, it'll be much easier to work with than say keyframes. But I just need to be aware wherever my animation ends, I need to make sure that none of these fade out accidentally. So with all these still selected, to stagger them, I can actually go back to the GeoLayers panel, and there's a script right here. I can run script file, and there's all these cool things you can do. And so I'll do stagger layers random, and there we go. That just gives it a little bit something more. And now I'm going to do is just activate motion blur for all of these. This is kind of the last step, because if you try to preview this, it's just going to bog everything down. And I'm going to go to my composition, like map comp settings here, and I'm going to turn on imagery motion blur as well as label motion blur, and then click apply. I like the labels here. I'm just going to go ahead and leave these labels up that come with this map. And now I can go ahead and finalize this and see what I got. I forgot to include the one key visual, which is where I actually live. What I did here is I put a simple shape element here in the area where I live, and then I created a quick walking distance map, which shows how far it will take me to walk 5 minutes, 10 minutes. And if you want to see how I put that together, there's actually another tutorial that I show how to do that. I'm going to link that in the video description, so be sure to go check that out right after you watch this video. And there you go. I hope you enjoyed the video. This was a lot of fun to put together. Again, please share with me whatever kind of map you create. Send some links down in the comments section, or tag me at Boone Loves Video on any of the social media accounts. I'd love to see what you put together. If you like the video, be sure to hit the thumbs up button. If you want to see more content like this, be sure to subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell, go check out Monday Maps. And if you're a huge fan, go check out my Patreon, link in the video description. You'll be able to download these project files there as well. See you in the next one.